You saw him again, didn't you? I asked. Darina didn't answer right away. Her hands were tight in her lap, knuckles pale, and her eyes fixed somewhere just past my shoulder. She was exhausted, not in the usual way, but soul deep. Her voice was soft when she finally spoke. He was in the kitchen. My father. I saw him. Like you and I see each other now. Not in a dream. Not a shadow. I was wide awake. The room around us seemed to grow colder. He's been gone almost a year, she added. I'm not crazy, right? No, I said. You're not crazy. But spirits don't return for no reason. That got her attention. Darina blinked and leaned forward. Then what does it mean? It means you're being warned. A message. A shadow before a storm. Your father's not here for you, but for someone close to you. Darina swallowed hard. Who? I shook my head. I can't see clearly yet. The threads are tangled. But he came to protect, not to scare. Trust that. She nodded slowly. And the insomnia? I smiled gently. You've been walking through the world like a ghost yourself. No wonder he came. You've already half joined him. I gave her a small pouch of herbs. Place this under your pillow. It will help you sleep. But more than that, if he returns, try to speak with him. He wants you to understand. Darina thanked me, clutching the pouch like a lifeline. She didn't know yet. Her world had only just begun to shake. That night, for the first time in weeks, Darina slept. When her husband Dimitro came home from work, she was already curled under the covers, breathing evenly. The book she always used to lull herself to sleep had fallen from her hand. He picked it up, kissed her forehead, and turned out the light. Over the next week, things seemed to improve. Darina felt rested again. Focused. She returned to work with energy she hadn't felt in months. Her co-workers noticed. Her boss, a difficult man with a reputation for micromanaging, began pulling her husband Dimitro into more and more errands. Why is your boss using you like a personal assistant? She asked one evening as she handed him a thermos of tea. Because I don't say no, Dimitro said with a shrug. And because I need the job. Still, something tugged at her. That weekend, she got a call from her mother, Tatiana Petrovna. He came to me in a dream, her mother whispered. Your father. He was just standing there. Not speaking. Just looking at me. Darina's heart clenched. Was he angry? No, her mother said. But I haven't seen him, not even in dreams, since the day he died. Darina promised to visit. Dimitro wasn't thrilled. You can't run to her every time she dreams about your dad. She's my mother. She's manipulative. Darina didn't argue. She just left. Her mother lived on the edge of the city in a cozy, aging apartment. She greeted Darina with a tight hug and watery eyes. Come in, come in. I've made soup. As they ate, her mother spoke quickly, nervously, like she was afraid the dream might vanish before she could explain it. I don't know what it means, but something's coming. I can feel it in my bones. You're just stressed, Darina said gently. We'll go get your blood pressure checked tomorrow, okay? Her mother nodded, but she looked old in a way Darina hadn't seen before. Fragile. That night, Darina stayed over, just in case. And from then on, she stayed more often. Brought groceries. Picked up prescriptions. Sat through tests and checkups and long stories about the past. At home, Dimitro began to pull away. He didn't yell. He didn't fight. He simply vanished into silence. When she came home, he was on the couch. Or in bed. Always half turned away. One day, she returned to find dirty dishes stacked to the ceiling. She asked him gently to help out Maud. He rolled his eyes. You're never here. The argument escalated quickly. They said things they didn't mean. And when it was over, Darina left again, back to her mother's. She tried to call him that night. No answer. Days passed. Her mother grew better, stronger. The strange fatigue lifted. But Darina didn't. She woke one night with a strange ache in her chest. Not pain, but pressure. A sense that something had shifted, or broken, or slipped out of place. She called her mother. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Everything feels wrong." And without waiting for permission, she booked a taxi and went over. In the morning, she visited me again. "I had another dream," she said. "Only this time. I think it wasn't mine." "What do you mean?" "It was like I saw through someone else's eyes. A car. A dark street. Screaming. It wasn't real, but it felt real. I took her hands. Cold. Shaking. Your father's trying to guide you again," I said. "But it's not your mother he's worried about anymore." She went pale. "Then who?" I didn't answer at first. Because I already knew. But the moment hadn't come yet. The signs had been there for weeks. But Darina hadn't wanted to see them. Dimitro stayed out later. Came home smelling like cologne that wasn't his. When he did talk, it was clipped and cold. His smile, the one she used to love, became a smirk she didn't recognize. She tried to convince herself it was stress. But the truth gnawed at her gut. So when she dreamt again, this time of knives sharp and glittering, laid out on a table like offerings, she knew it wasn't just her imagination. It was a message. The next morning, Darina returned to the blind Madame Grace. "I need to know," she said. "Is Dimitro cheating on me?" The old woman didn't blink. "Put your hands on the table. Palms up." Darina obeyed. Grace reached out, her fingers skimming the lines of Darina's hands as though reading a language only she could understand. "He loves you," she said slowly. "But something sharp lies between you." Darina's brow furrowed. Something sharp. A gift. Something that should never have been given. She blinked, then remembered. "My mother gave us knives for New Year's. A whole set." Grace nodded. "That's it. Never gift blades to a couple. Unless you want them living on edge. You must pay for them. Even a single coin. It severs the curse. But it's been months. Then it's already taken root." Grace handed her a single silver coin. "Give this to your mother. And say these words. Let the knives cut where they will, but not between us. Then take one of the knives and try to cut this coin. Cut the coin. Try. It will not slice. But the intent is what matters." Darina left the apartment buzzing with nerves. She met her mother in the park that afternoon. They sat on a bench beneath a line of trembling birches. "I need you to take this," Darina said, placing the coin in her mother's hand. "What's this for?" "For the knives." Her mother blinked. "You mean the set I gave you and Dimitro? I thought you loved it." "We did. But it was a mistake." Her mother rolled her eyes. "You believe everything that old woman tells you?" "She's helped me. More than you know." There was a long silence. "Do you even love him?" her mother asked at last. Darina looked away. "I don't know anymore. But I know I don't want to lose him without a fight." That evening, Darina placed the coin on the kitchen table. She took one of the knives from the set, the smallest one, and held it above the silver. She whispered Grace's words. Then pressed down. As expected, the blade didn't cut. But something inside her cracked, like a thread that had been pulled too tight. The tension in the house shifted. The air grew still. Heavy. Then her phone buzzed. A message from her neighbor. "I found Dimitro. He collapsed. I called the ambulance." Darina didn't think. She ran. At the hospital, she found him pale and unconscious, hooked up to monitors and machines that beeped too loudly. "He's lucky you got here when you did," the nurse said. "It was appendicitis. Severe. Minutes from bursting." Darina sat beside him for hours, holding his hand, tears burning her cheeks. She thought of all the arguments. The silence. The suspicion. How close she'd come to walking away. How close he'd come to dying. When Dimitro finally opened his eyes, he smiled weakly. You stayed. Of course I did. I'm sorry. For what? Everything. She didn't press. Not yet. Over the next week, he recovered slowly. Darina brought him homemade soup. Read to him from the same book she used to fall asleep with. They laughed. They remembered who they used to be. And then, one night, he said something that made her heart stop. That woman in the park that day. The one you thought was my lover? She was the boss's wife. I was helping pick out flowers for his surprise party. That's all. Darina stared at him. Why didn't you just tell me that? Because you were already convinced. And I didn't know how to undo it. I figured, better silence than a lie. She wanted to be angry. But the truth was, she had wanted to believe the worst. Because believing it meant she didn't have to fight for what was breaking. Now, she wasn't so sure. When they returned home, everything felt different. The light. The rooms. The way he looked at her. And the way she looked back. They talked about moving. About starting fresh. Maybe even trying for a child, if fate allowed. Darina called her mother that night. I think things might finally be okay. Her mother's response was quiet. I hope so, dear. But fate is never quite done. Because a few days later, Darina saw her. The woman from the park. The supposed stranger. Standing outside their building. Watching. Darina's blood ran cold. Golia, she whispered. The woman smiled and walked away. Darina couldn't breathe. She stood frozen on the steps, watching the woman, Golia, disappear down the sidewalk as if she hadn't just shattered Darina's fragile sense of peace. That smile. That smile. It wasn't one of friendliness. It was knowing. Triumphant. Darina didn't sleep that night. Her thoughts spiraled. Why was Golia here? What did she want? And most terrifying of all, what if Dimitro had lied? She waited until morning, then drove straight to the park where she'd first spotted them. She needed answers. Excuse me, Darina asked the florist near the benches. Do you remember this woman? She held out a photo from her phone, one she'd taken weeks ago, blurry but clear enough. The florist nodded. Oh, her. Golia. She's a regular. Lives nearby. Always comes by with her husband. Tall guy. Black car. Darina's stomach turned. Husband. And do you know her last name? The florist hesitated, then shrugged. No idea. But she mentioned she and her man run a repair shop. Computers, I think. Somewhere on 6th. That night, while Dimitro was resting, Darina slipped out and followed the trail. The repair shop wasn't hard to find. A small place, tucked between a bakery and a bike store. But it was closed. Still, she saw the light on inside. And someone moving. She peered through the window, and froze. Dimitro. Laughing. With Golia. She stepped back, heart pounding. Her phone trembled in her hands. She took a photo. Then left before she did something reckless. Darina didn't go home. Instead, she went to her mother's apartment and spent the night pacing, staring at the image on her screen over and over. Was this real? Was he cheating? Still? Or had he never stopped? By morning, she had made up her mind. She needed the truth, even if it broke her. So she returned to blind Madame Grace. I tried everything, she whispered. I gave the coin. I did the ritual. But now I think he lied to me. I saw him. With her. Grace listened in silence, then motioned for Darina to sit. Not all lies are spoken, she said. Some are just continued silence. Can you see, if he loves me? Grace closed her eyes. There was a pause. Then. He did. Maybe he still does. But something pulls him away. A tie that's not yet cut. Darina blinked. You mean her? I mean karma. Golia is no stranger to him. Their history is long and unfinished. So what do I do? Grace reached behind her and pulled out a length of red thread. Tie this around your wrist tonight. And under your pillow, place something of his, something he's worn recently. If his heart belongs to you, the dream will show you. If not, you'll see what holds him back. Darina took the thread. What if I don't want to know? Then keep pretending. But pretending doesn't stop a house from burning. That night, Darina waited until Dimitro had showered and gone to bed. She took his shirt, the one he'd worn that day, and placed it under her pillow, then tied the red thread around her wrist, and waited for sleep to come. She dreamt of fire. Not destructive, but cleansing. And in the middle of the flames stood Dimitro, alone. He looked at her, reached out. But between them was Golia, her hand on his shoulder, smiling with that same wicked grin. Then the fire grew, consumed them all. And when Darina woke up, her pillow was damp with tears. The shirt smelled like smoke. She didn't confront him that morning, didn't scream or throw accusations. Instead, she waited. And followed. That afternoon, Dimitro told her he had a work meeting. Instead of going to the office, he drove to the same apartment building Darina had seen him enter before. Only this time, she didn't just watch. She walked right up and knocked on the door. Golia answered. Well, she said, smirking. That didn't take long. I want to talk to him. He's busy. Darina pushed past her. Inside, the apartment was small, cozy, too cozy. And there he was, sitting on the couch, eyes wide as Darina stormed in. Dosha. Don't. She held up her phone, showed him the photo. How long? He didn't answer. How long, Dimitro? A few months, he whispered. It ended. But it started before your dream, before the accident. Before the ritual. Before everything. Why? She asked. I don't know. Do you love her? No. Then why? Because I was weak. She turned to Golia. And you? Golia crossed her arms. He was never yours to begin with. You just borrowed him. Darina almost lunged. But she didn't. Instead, she reached into her pocket, pulled out the last coin Grace had given her, and dropped it onto the floor between them. Keep him, she said. He's already cost me everything. Then she left. Back home, she packed a small bag. Not much. Just what she needed. Then sat on the couch. And cried. Not for him. For herself. For the woman she used to be, and the one she'd become trying to keep something that was never fully hers. The next day, Darina returned to Grace. I let him go. Grace nodded. I know. I don't feel better. You won't. Not yet. Then what was the point? The point, Grace said gently, was not to win. It was to stop losing. Darina closed her eyes. I just want peace. You'll get it. But only after you give yourself permission to stop bleeding. But peace would not come easy, because a week later, Darina received a phone call. From the hospital. Dimitro. Critical condition. Internal bleeding. Appendix. Again. No. A car crash. He had been speeding. Distracted. And Golia had been with him. Dead on arrival. The hospital hallway smelled like antiseptic and grief. Darina sat motionless in the waiting room chair, staring at the white-tiled floor, her hands still sticky from the paper cup of cold coffee she'd been holding for hours. Dimitro was in surgery. Golia was dead. It felt like a cruel joke from the universe. She should have felt something. Relief, maybe. Or even victory. But all she felt was numb. He's stable, a nurse finally told her hours later. But it'll be a long recovery. He'll need you. Darina wanted to laugh. Did he ever need her? The following days passed in a blur. She visited the hospital daily, brought him books, clothes, even that cologne he liked, the one she once considered throwing out. At first, he couldn't speak. His jaw was wired, ribs fractured, but his eyes spoke enough. Apology, shame, pain. Darina sat beside him in silence, unsure if she was doing this out of love or guilt. She thought about Golia. No funeral was held publicly. No obituary. Just a quiet disappearance. Grace had warned her, karma doesn't leave loose threads. And some people cut themselves on the scissors. When Dimitro finally spoke, it was with a raspy whisper. I didn't mean for it to end like this. Darina looked at him. No one ever does. She blackmailed me. After the accident, she realized what she could get from me. The guilt. I thought I owed her. Darina said nothing. I loved you, he added, voice barely audible. Loved? She asked. He blinked. I still do. But it sounded like a question. After a month, he was discharged. Darina brought him home. Their apartment looked the same, but nothing felt the same. The couch where they'd once shared lazy Sundays now felt like a stranger's seat. His favorite mug? She'd already thrown it out, only to replace it before he came home. He noticed. You bought the same one, he said one morning. No, she replied. I replaced it. There's a difference. They tried to start over, but the ghosts were everywhere. Golia's memory clung to his clothes like invisible perfume. Darina found herself watching him while he slept, wondering if his dreams still whispered her name. One night, she couldn't hold it in. You still think about her? Dimitro sighed. Not in the way you think. What way is that? I think about what she cost us. What I let her cost us. Darina nodded slowly. But do you regret it because she's gone? Or because I'm still here? He didn't answer. And that silence said everything. 2 days later, Darina returned to blind Madame Grace. She hadn't meant to. Her feet had just carried her there. Grace opened the door before she knocked. I've been expecting you. Darina sat, staring into the flickering candlelight. I brought him back. But it doesn't feel right. Grace poured tea. Because it isn't. I thought I wanted this. For him to see what he almost lost. For me to win. But winning someone back doesn't mean you've healed. It only means you've delayed the breaking. Darina swallowed. I'm so tired. Of fighting. Of pretending I'm okay. Then stop pretending, Grace said. It's not your job to hold a broken man together with the pieces of your own heart. Darina looked up. I don't want to leave him while he's still recovering. You're not leaving him, Grace said gently. You're finally returning to yourself. That night, Darina stood in the hallway of their apartment, suitcase in hand. Dimitro sat on the couch, his healing leg propped on a cushion. Where are you going? He asked. Somewhere I can breathe. I thought we were rebuilding. We were. I just realized I'm building alone. He looked away. You're still angry. I'm not angry, she said. I'm exhausted. She walked to the door, then paused. I don't hate you, Dimitro. I just love myself now too. And with that, she left. Weeks passed. Darina moved in with a friend, started focusing on her work again, even began attending yoga classes, something she'd always wanted but never had time for. Every so often, Dimitro would text. How are you? Did you eat? Can we talk? She rarely replied. Because even the gentlest hands can hurt you when they've forgotten how to hold. One afternoon, as she sorted through her mail, Darina found an envelope. No return address. Inside, a photo of her. Sitting alone at a park bench, the same bench where she once saw Dimitro and Golia. The note inside was simple. Some wounds don't close. Some just fester. Her blood turned cold. She rushed to Grace's home. "Someone's watching me," she gasped. "I thought it was over, but—" Grace took the photo, examined it. "This isn't from the living." Darina blinked. "What? This is grief. You think Golia is?" "She never got closure. And you never truly cut the thread." Darina backed away. "No. I did the rituals. I did everything. Except forgive yourself," Grace said softly. Darina sank into the chair. "I blamed myself for everything. I still do." "Then that's where she lives," Grace said. "Not outside your window. Inside your shame. Can I be free of her?" Grace nodded. "But not until you stop holding the knife she handed you." That night, Darina lit a candle, took the photo, the letter, everything tied to Golia, and burned it. As the paper turned to ash, she whispered, "I release you. I forgive myself. I cut the thread." Then she blew out the flame. And for the first time in a long time, she slept through the night. Months later, Darina stood by a quiet lake, watching the water ripple in the early morning light. She wasn't there to remember Dimitro, or Golia, or even Grace, though she still visited from time to time. She was there for herself. Because sometimes, healing isn't loud. Sometimes, it's standing still in silence, breathing, and realizing, you survived. And that is enough.